I cannot wait. It's going down in the house that Jerry built. The Redskins have been heating up, winning 6 of their last 8, while the Cowboys, well, they've been hot. They're in a 9-game win streak. Much of that credit goes to each team's quarterback and Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott. So let's take a look at how these two have compared so far this season. Dak holds the NFL's second best total QBR at 84.5, while Kirk is just over 71. Now, their completion percentage and touchdowns, they're nearly identical, but notice the glaring difference when you see the interceptions. Cousins has 5 more. Stephen A., we've been hearing a lot about Dak this season, but who's actually had the better season thus far, Dak or Kirk?
Well, I'm going to shock the world here. I mean, it's been Kirk Cousins. And I know that there are people out there like, there goes Stephen A. again. The Cowboys hater. Man, I don't give. I could care less.
People out there, people right here.
Yeah, I'm one of them, Stephen A.
You'll get your chance. You'll get your chance. Here's the deal. We all know Dak Prescott's a young stud. I can appreciate that. But I'm looking at a Kirk Cousins right now. Yeah, Matt Jones is all right, and this kid Kelly showed some promise over the last couple of weeks. I get that. But when you consider the troubles that the Redskins have had defensively, when you consider offensively, Kirk Cousins having to throw the football as much as he has. Take out the first couple of weeks, I guess, when they were 0-2. They're 6-1-1 over the last 8 weeks. Kirk Cousins got 3,000 yards passing. He's got over 400 more yards passing than Dak Prescott. He's thrown 5 more interceptions. But that's primarily because he has to take risks that Dak Prescott really doesn't have to take, because Dak Prescott has that offensive line and he has Ezekiel Elliott. And Alfred Morris, a former Redskin, I might add. Not to mention Cole Beasley in between the seams as your slot receiver. Jason Witten, who's Mr. Reliable. And, of course, that was even before Dez Bryant came back. And so when I look at how Dak is insulated to some degree, I'm not trying to take anything away from him because the kid is special. He's got a lot of promise. But I think when you see the onus that is placed on Kirk Cousins, particularly succeeding the RG3 era, and you look at a Garcon and a Deshaun Jackson in the last year of his contract, him being the franchise tag quarterback, betting on himself with that 1-year deal, having a running game that's been inconsistent, explosive at times, but still relatively inconsistent. The same could be said about your offensive line. All of these things going on around you, and somehow, some way, you're Kirk Cousins, and you're having the season that you have had. I really, really believe that thus far, it's right there. It's not by a long shot or anything like that. But this is one of those rare occasions, Max, where I don't think QBR or the 5 interception gap tells the whole story. I think the onus placed on the shoulders of Kirk Cousins is entirely different than the onus placed on the shoulders of Dak Prescott. And I'm going to say that Kirk Cousins has had a slightly better season thus far.
Well, you can say that, and you will be wrong as usual. Dak Prescott's having a better season, and I am going to talk about QBR. It's second in the league, but really it's first because Tom Brady missed those 4 games. So, yes, on a per-game basis, Tom Brady's been better than Dak Prescott. But when you ask about total value over the course of the season, by the numbers, Dak Prescott has had more value than any other player in the NFL. Now, is he playing behind a great offensive line? Yes. Is Ezekiel Elliott helping him? Yes. The return of Dez Bryant, before that, Beasley and these guys, Witten you mentioned, yes. It's all helped Dak Prescott. And Kirk Cousins is actually not just dinking and dunking recently. He's throwing the ball down the field, and he's doing it very well, and he was on fire against the Green Bay Packers. So, yes, he is at a disadvantage that way compared to Dak, but Dak's numbers are still better. So let's use the eyeball test and make some comparisons here if you want me to get away from the numbers. Do you know who Dak Prescott is, basically, Stephen A. Smith? A lot of people like to talk about Russell Wilson, and I get it. I see a lot of that there. Wilson drafted in the 3rd, Prescott in the 4th round. Game managers who are big on 3rd down. Russell Wilson more mobile than Dak, but Dak got his wheels are good enough. I see the comparisons there. But actually who Dak Prescott reminds me more of than anybody else is Tom Brady. Reminds me of a young Tom Brady.
Really?
Who had that look. The first time you saw Tom Brady, you said, who's that guy? He had a look of a winner, the way he handled things. And I think a lot of that was because Brady's always been the kind of guy to not force things. He takes what the defense gives him. If it's not there, It's not there. And so early on in Brady's career, he got all the kind of he's a winner credit, but not enough of the he's actually a great quarterback credit, because we look at game managers compared to guys like Peyton Manning who can make spectacular plays and shred defenses. We look at game managers and we use that as a dirty word. We tend to take credit away. In my view, one of the greatest things you can see in a young quarterback is game manager who's big on third down. Yes, that was Russell Wilson. It was also Tom Brady. And that's who Dak Prescott reminds me of more than anybody else. A young Tom Brady is only going to take what you give him. He's big on third downs. He's playing for a great team. And he's a winner.
Let me ask you this question. When are we going to take a moment to give Kirk Cousins some credit? They've got the number 3 ranked passing attack in the entire NFL. Their defense ranks 22nd against the run, 18th against the pass. Matt Jones and Kelly have been relatively inconsistent. Deshaun Jackson, 1 week he's healthy, the next minute he's not. Jordan Reed, 1 minute he's healthy, the next week he's not. You look at a Dak Prescott, nobody's trying to take away anything. I'm not going to even disagree with you on the Tom Brady front because he's got that it factor. Dak is going to be big time, it appears. But when you have that massive offensive line, when you've got an elite running back like Ezekiel Elliott, who's no question elite, this dude is just on another level, and you combine that with Alfred Morris, and then you've got a guy like Cole Beasley, who simply continues to move the chains. You've got the Jason Wittens of the world, the veteran, future Hall of Fame tight end. You look at some of these things, and then you've buffered by a defense that ranks 3rd against the rush. If you look at the parts around Dak Prescott, I'm not trying to take anything away from him. I'm just saying, to be a rookie, he's in a really, really elite situation because you talk about literally Dak Prescott walked into this season with them essentially saying, just don't make any mistakes because we got this running game with this offensive line. We going to be all right. Plus, we're going to allow you to feed the ball, even though they've been taking more chances with him as the season has waned and he's picked up more of the playbook, and he deserves credit for that. When you've got a Witten and a Beasley and those boys really shielding you and cushioning you because you're able to avoid taking but so many risks because of short yardage situations. Not to say he hasn't made big throws at times, because he has, but you're taking those short yardage situations. Then you look at Cousins, franchise tag $19.95 million, betting on himself. Understanding that the defense was going to be relatively suspect, even though that secondary with Breeland and Norman is big time. Understanding that Garcon and Deshaun Jackson in the last year of their contracts looking to get something from them. A Crowder coming up out of nowhere. A Jordan Reed being a stud but not healthy. A Vernon Davis coming out of nowhere and producing for you. And you having to work within the confines and the terrain of this. And that's, I know you read Pro Football Focus and all of these other things.
Who does?
Jay Gruden, we got to give him his props in terms of record, but there have been a lot of NFL aficionados that have questioned his in-gamesmanship, his in-game management, and how astute or lack thereof he may be. Kirk Cousins is working with all of this, and somehow, some way, they got this record. He's already passed for 3,000 yards with 6 games to go. He's thrown 7 interceptions, that's true, but it ain't 14 or something like that. With all the chances that he's taking, I can't ignore that. I just can't.
It's nothing, by the way, and I'm taking nothing away from Kirk Cousins, who's a nice guy rooting for him, unless they're playing the Giants. But he's having an excellent season. In fact, if they beat the Cowboys, and you look at the numbers, he's kind of forced himself into an MVP conversation if he puts up big numbers in that game.
Whoa.
It's not, we could debate that another time. The point is not to take anything away from Kirk Cousins. And I also agree with the point that Dak has more around him. His job is easier. That's true. But just because your job is easier doesn't mean you aren't also better. They talk to talent evaluators around the league. You can have Kirk Cousins or Dak Prescott. They're taking Dak Prescott. He's better, not only for the long run. So far this year, he's been better. By the way, Kirk Cousins also has yet to show. You talk about Dak Prescott being a rookie. Let's see him do it. Let's see. No, this is the first time he's going to face a team twice. Let's see how he looks the second time around. All that. Although so far, Ravens, hey, let's have Dak beat us from the pocket.
Well,
okay, and he beat him from the pocket. So, you can say all that, but Kirk Cousins last year had flashes of this, but was inconsistent.
Well,
this year is not over yet. Let's see if Kirk Cousins can keep this up.
Well, I agree. Whoa. I agree with that. I'm not refuting that, nor am I refuting that I would take Dak Prescott over Kirk Cousins because of what mistakes I've seen Kirk Cousins. Let me finish. Because of what I've seen Kirk Cousins do in the past. Dak Prescott doesn't have that history. Kirk Cousins has a very shaky history. But as of right now, through these first 10 games of the season, what I have seen, that's what this debate is predicated on. Also, let's keep in mind, Max, Kirk Cousins has thrown the football approximately 70 more times than Dak Prescott. So all I'm saying to you is that he's throwing the football more, he's taking more risk, and he's playing with a less with less of a potent offensive line and less of a potent running game. I can't ignore that. I don't want to sit up here and say Kirk Cousins is better than Dak Prescott, but I think the conditions under which he has had to perform
are more difficult, sure.
Based on what he's done, I got to give credit where credit is due.
Fine, but you are taking away credit from Dak Prescott if he's doing everything that's asked of him and they're winning. Like, bottom line is this. One quarterback's 9-1 and has the highest QBR of any quarterback in the league that's played all the games. That guy is the better quarterback. That's Dak Prescott.
Well, if you got an elite running game and an elite offensive line, you don't have to take anything away from a quarterback without appreciating the fact that they're buffered by a strong supporting cast. You can't ignore that either. You got to pay attention to the supporting cast. And I think that Dak's supporting cast is far better than Kirk Cousins, but Kirk Cousins has still been able to do what he's done. I think he deserves credit for that. That's all I'm saying.
Look, quarterback evaluations are notoriously difficult because it's difficult to isolate their value apart from their team, especially their offensive line. But as you mentioned, also the running game and the receivers and the nature of the offense, the ball control offense, which also makes their defense better and therefore the team better. It is difficult to isolate their value. However, the best kind of tools we have are, for example, QBR, which say that Dak is better. And I'm sorry that Kirk doesn't have as much around him and his job may be more difficult, but now you're dealing in hypotheticals. What if his job wasn't more difficult? Could he then be as good as Dak Prescott? His job is more difficult, and he's not.
That's a very annoying analogy. We all prognosticate based on hypotheticals at times. We do it every day. We have to, because you foresee and you foreshadow. If that's the case, no NFL analyst needs to have a job. Because why the hell talk about it? You take things into consideration. That's part of your argument. How are you going to sit up there and knock somebody for sitting up there and looking at a hypothetical and saying, if he was on this team, you trying to tell me it's wrong to sit up there and say, what if Big Ben Roethlisberger was playing for Bill Belichick, or Aaron Rodgers, what if he was playing for Bill Belichick?
That's different when I do it. That's different when I do it, because I'm making the point.
I got it.
The egos we deal with.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
That's a good point.
All right, guys. So while we're showing quarterbacks love,
Turkey Day,
we can't forget about Matthew Stafford. He's been on the come up. Up next, Week 9, the Lions beat the Vikings in dramatic fashion in overtime. The teams are currently tied in the NFC North. So will this game determine who wins the division? We get into it.